In this video, we will continue discussing the remaining part of section 24. First, we start with the theorem. In the last class, we have seen the definition of analytic function, that is due to differentiability throughout a domain. So, you can extend the properties of differentiability to analyticity if it is differentiable throughout a neighborhood or epsilon neighborhood. Now we prove this theorem. If f dash z equal to 0 everywhere in a domain D, I have drawn a picture. Suppose this is D, then f dash z is 0 everywhere in this D. Then f of z must be constant throughout this D. So in order to prove this f of z is constant throughout D, we write f of z as u plus iv. In fact, that is u of xy f of z is equal to u of xy plus I times v of xy. For the sake of simplicity, we write this is simply u plus iv. And we are given that this f dash z equal to 0 throughout D implies ux plus I times vx equal to 0 for all z belongs to D. This we have already discussed. F dash z can be written in this form, and using Cauchy-Riemann equation, ux equal to vy and vx equal to minus uy. So this is minus I times uy. That is also 0 because of this. The same thing happened. In particular, you can write ux equal to vy. Ux equal to uy is equal to vx is equal to vy are all 0 from this, because this is a complex number. A complex number equal to 0 means real part equal to 0, imaginary part equal to 0, and from this you can get vy is equal to 0, uy is also 0. So this happens for all z in D. So we are given that ux equal to 0, vx equal to 0, uy is equal to 0, vy equal to 0 throughout this D. And first of all, in order to prove this f is constant, we need to prove that real part is a constant and imaginary part is a constant. So we reduce our attention to this u of xy rather than f of z, and we prove that this is constant in D. That means u of xy equal to some a for every xy belongs to D or every z equal to x plus iy in D. So in order to prove this, this function u of xy is constant in D, we make use of a resultant calculus, that is this one, du by ds equal to gradient times u, where this s is the distance along L from P, the point P, and u is the unit vector along this L in the direction of increasing s. Increasing s means if you move along this L from P, the increasing direction of s is, that means s is the distance from P. So the distance from P increases as we move along this L in this direction. So u is the unit vector in this direction. Okay. So du by ds, this is the rate of change of the function u of xy with respect to s. S means the distance along L from P. So if you move along this way, the rate of change of u, that is denoted by this du by ds, that can be written as gradient of u. We know that gradient of u is written as ux times I, that is partial derivative of u with respect to x times I plus this is a vector I, and this is uy times j. Okay, so this is the gradient of u. This dot, the unit vector, we can write it as u1 times I plus u2 times I. This is the unit vector along u, along this L. Then this dot product is what we call du by ds, rate of change of u along this L. So once you prove this du by ds equal to 0, we can say that u is constant along this line segment L. In particular, or as a consequence, you can write u of P will be same as u of P prime. And if you repeat the same thing from P prime to Q, you can get this u P prime is same as u of Q. Consequently, you can say that u of P is equal to u of Q. That means if you choose any arbitrary points from this D, you can get u of p is same as u of q throughout this d. That means u is a constant in this d. So we make use of this to prove this u of x y is a constant. Okay, but this is trivial thing, because if we use this one, du by ds is equal to a grade u, that is ux times I, this is unit vector, and uy times, this is uy times j dot whatever this u. Okay, since this ux equal to 0 from this equation and uy is also from this, we will get this is equal to 0. That means rate of change of u along s, or with respect to s, is 0. That means as we move from p along this direction, the rate of change of u is 0. That means u of xy is constant along L. So if we choose any line segment L from P to P prime, we will get u is constant. Okay, so finally, since there is always a finite number of such line segment joined end to end connecting any two points P and Q in D. Okay, if we choose two points inside this D that can be connected through a line segment, through a number of line segments joining end to end. So we can say that u is throughout. Due to this, we can say that u is constant throughout this D. Okay, then we can write this u of from this we can write u of xy equal to a for all z equal to or equivalently, that is x comma y belongs to D. Okay, the similar fashion we can repeat the same thing using v. Then we will also get v of xy is equal to some b for all z which is equal to x comma y represented using this belongs to D. Okay, this implies f of xy is defined as u plus iv, which is equal to a plus ib for all z belongs to D, which shows that this f is constant along throughout this D, since this derivative of f equal to 0 throughout this D. So this proves the theorem. In the next section, section 25, we can see some examples of functions, analytic functions. F of z equal to z cube plus 4 divided by z square minus 3 times z square plus 1. So if you consider this function, you can easily see that this at the point z equal to plus or minus I and z is equal to plus or minus 2, 3. At all these points, the function is not defined. Therefore, at all these points, the function is not analytic as well. So f of z is not analytic at z equal to plus or minus I and z equal to plus or minus 2, 3. All other points, this f of z is differentiable or analytic, since we can consider this points in the complex plane. This is plus or one thing is plus or minus I. You write this is our plus or minus I. This is I, and this is minus I, and this is root 3 minus root 3, and this is root 3. And we can say that except all these points, the function is analytic. Therefore, if you choose any point other than these 4 points, you can easily get a neighborhood in which this, if you consider z not here, and you can easily get a neighborhood at which this f of z is differentiable. Therefore, f is analytic at z naught. And at all these points, I, root 3, minus I and minus root 3, at all these points, if you consider neighborhood at any of these points, you can get, or except this root 3, the function is analytic inside this neighborhood. Similarly, you can consider neighborhoods at each of these 4 points in which this function is analytic, except for those 4 points. Therefore, this function is analytic, and these four values are called singular points. These are called singular points. Singular points. So section 25 deals with this type of examples, and a couple of examples, three more examples are discussed in this section 25, but the third example is very important. We will discuss that also. In that example, example 3, it is given that f of z equal to u of x comma y plus I times v of x comma y, and the conjugate of the function f of z is also defined. That is defined as u of xy minus I v of xy. This is the conjugate of this function. This is f of z and this is f of z conjugate, and this is in fact called f conjugate of z. This is the conjugate of the function f itself. Okay, so if we are given that these two functions are analytic, that means this is differentiable everywhere, some neighborhood of some point, is it not? Then if these are analytic, then you can get the components of f as well as the components of f conjugate satisfy CR equations. Okay, so if we consider u plus iv, we can say that CR equations are ux equal to vy and uy is equal to minus vx. So these are the corresponding CR equations of this function, and we are given that u minus iv is also analytic. Therefore, the components of this function also satisfy the same CR equations. So due to this, we can say that ux equal to the imaginary part of this function is minus v, so that is minus vy. Okay, from this you can say that ux is same as minus vy. Similarly, uy is same as minus of minus v, that is vx itself. So if you assume these are analytic functions, then using the CR equations for these two functions independently, we will get these four equations. Okay, so if we solve these four equations, or if you consider for the first two equations, ux equal to vy and ux equal to minus vy, from this you can say that vy and minus vy are the same. That means 2 times vy is equal to 0. From this you can say that 2 times vx equal to 0. That is, these four equations together imply that vy is equal to minus vy and vx equal to minus vx. Consequently, we will get vx equal to vy equal to 0. When we substitute these values in this equation, you will also get ux equal to 0 and uy is also 0. From these four quantities, you can easily write f dash z. F dash z is in fact ux plus I vx. Consequently, we get 0 plus I times 0, that is equal to 0. That means whenever a function f is analytic, along with its conjugate function f conjugate, then which is also analytic, then we will get the derivative of f is equal to 0 throughout the domain. That means using the previous theorem, you can say that this f is constant. F of z is constant. Okay, so we can conclude that whenever a function and its conjugates both are analytic throughout the domain D, then that function is constant throughout that domain. Okay, so this is also discussed as theorem, example 3. And when we move on to fourth example, in that example there is an interesting result like this. Example 4. In that we have an analytic function f. Let f be analytic with the property that mod f of z is constant. Okay, mod f of z is some c. Okay, for z belongs to a domain D. Then you can say that mod f of z is f of z times f of z conjugate, that is equal to mod f of z square. So whenever we assume that mod f of z is a constant, then we can say that f of z times f dash z is equal to c square. F dash z means f of z conjugate. From this you can say that f of z conjugate, that is equal to c square divided by f of z for all z in D. Okay, so it follows from this that f dash conjugate is analytic in D. Okay, so this f conjugate is analytic in D if this f of z not equal to 0. So whenever f of z not equal to 0 inside this D, then you can say that the conjugate is also analytic. Okay, so whenever since the mod f of z equal to 0, then the C has two possibilities: either the C will be 0, otherwise this not equal to 0. If the C equal to 0, then mod f of z equal to 0 throughout this D. Then in that case, that means if mod f of z equal to C, which is equal to 0 for all z belongs to D, implies f of z equal to 0 for all z. F of z, mod f of z not equal to, equal to C, which is not equal to 0 for all z in D, implies that f of z not equal to 0 for all z. Okay, there are two possibilities. Since the modulus is constant, we are given that modulus is constant. So if this constant is 0, then f of z is throughout 0, f of z equal to 0 throughout in D. Otherwise, f of z never be 0 in D. So in this case, we can say that f of z is a constant function and it is equal to 0 function. Otherwise, f of z not equal to 0, mod f of z not equal to 0 throughout this D, then we can get this modular, this f of z conjugate is c square divided by this f of z. Since this f of z not equal to 0 means that this function is analytic throughout this D, then we can say that f is constant. Because of the previous theorem, f of z is analytic and f of z conjugate is analytic, then consequently this implies f of z is constant. From this you can get f of z is equal to 0 for all z. So in any case we have f of z equal to a constant function. Okay, so this is the example 4. This is the last example of that section 25. So please note these two results, example 3 and example 4. Whenever modulus of an analytic function is constant, then that function itself is constant. Okay, there are functions for which modulus is constant but the function is not constant. Okay, but if we consider the analytic function like this, we can easily say that the function itself a constant function.